to schedule your summer vacations, your sabbaticals, your honeymoons even, at the end of July or early August, so you come back refreshed, rejuvenated, ready to go to dive into fall camps, and more importantly, college football season. And we are getting closer and closer here. It is Sunday, August 10th as we record this. It is College Football Tailgate with Dan Watkins and John McKechnie. I'm Dan. He's John. We're ready to go. John, what's up, buddy? I am pumped to talk a little Big Ten football today.
Yeah, we're getting into the big boys now. Not to take anything away from the ACC and of course our wonderful ACC previews, but you got a couple of top 5 teams here in the Big Ten. Some heavy hitters. You got a reigning national champion, a couple teams that are knocking on that door. So like the depth of this conference just keeps getting crazier. Obviously, that's something that can be pulled off when you have 18 teams in your conference, but regardless, I'm pumped to talk some big football.
So before we really dive into these teams and stuff, I figured we should probably do a little broader discussion here with the Big Ten, because we know for now basically college football has become SEC and Big Ten, drop off, ACC, Big 12, drop off, G5, and so on. But for years, the SEC has just absolutely dominated this sport. Really until recently, right? Because we got the past 2 national champions here coming out of this conference, the Big Ten and Ohio State and Michigan. So I want to ask you, you're an SEC guy. Has the Big Ten caught up? Have they passed? Are they still behind? Where are you at here when we rank the conferences in the hierarchy of college football?
Yeah, I think that the top end is right on par with one another. I think the SEC's addition of Texas kind of helps keep their blue blood status, even with Alabama obviously losing Nick Saban at the end of the 2023 season. But the elites from both conferences match up extremely well against another. I think cases can be made for the top 4 teams in each conference to be right there with the other. I mean, you look at the top 10 in the coaches poll. You got Texas number 1, Georgia number 4, Alabama number 8, LSU number 9, and then you look at the Big Ten side of it. You got Ohio State and Penn State at 2 and 3 respectively. You got Oregon checking in at 7, and then just a little bit, not that much further down, you got Illinois at 12 actually. So I mean, you've got huge clusters of the conference's elite taking up effectively the entire top 10.
Yeah, and I think you also got to dive a little deeper with this too. I went and I just took 3-year sample sizes from recruiting and top 25 classes, right? The SEC, when it comes to recruiting, is still a step ahead of the Big Ten. So last 3 years, right, the SEC top 25 recruiting classes in 2023, they had 12 of them. 2024, they had 13. And then 2025, they had 12 of them going into this year. Big Ten is at 7, 7, and 8. So there's still a little bit of a gap there. But it does seem like you were mentioning, at the higher end, though, the Big Ten has absolutely narrowed this gap, if not totally come to terms and are right there with the SEC. Playoff teams the last 3 years, right? In 2024, the Big Ten had 4, the SEC had just 3. 2023, the SEC had 2, Big Ten had 1, and then in 2022, the Big Ten had 2 playoff teams to just 1 in the SEC there. So Big Ten actually has 1 more playoff team over the last 3 seasons than the SEC does. A lot of that has to do with Ohio State and Michigan, not so much the depth of this conference, but like you were saying, at the upper level here, the Big Ten has certainly narrowed this gap.
And I think we kind of have exciting on the rise. I think due in part to transfer portal, NIL. I know that kind of has to be the disclaimer for anything, but that second tier I think is really interesting in both cases. I mean, we saw Indiana make the college football playoff last year. I think Ole Miss is a program that's knocking right on that door as well. I think that Tennessee, they make the playoff last year. That a lot of questions about them, but they're an interesting program. I think Illinois, I think, is really another one from the Big Ten that's oh man, this is a huge spot. There's a lot in front of them. We'll do a deeper dive on them in part 2 of this, but there's the depth pieces of both conferences that I think continue to get a little bit stronger. You had a great season last year,
Yeah, and Diego Pavia is back too, so that'll be fun to talk about. And we know he just terrorizes the entire state of Alabama. We'll talk about that when we get to the SEC. So what I want to do here, John, I'm not sure if you can see this or not, but I'm going to bring up the FanDuel odds screen here for the Big Ten. We are trying some new software today for everybody out there to see how this works for us and if this works. Instead of your traditional Zoom anyway. But I'm bringing up the Big Ten odds board on FanDuel here for us. As you can see, Ohio State is the favorite here at plus 195. Many people forget that even though Ohio State went on to win the national title last year, they did not win this conference. Oregon did. They were the #1 seed going into the playoff. Ohio State kind of fumbled there at the end of the regular season, which may have actually jolted their national championship run when they lost to Michigan again for a third straight year. But we got Ohio State at plus 195. We got Penn State at plus 220, followed by Oregon at plus 360, and then a gigantic drop-off here with Michigan at 10-1. So, John, before we get into our team previews, any overall thoughts going into the Big Ten season for this year?
Well, I think Oregon, and we'll unpack them a little bit further, but I have the biggest question marks about Oregon. And I think you make similar arguments about Oregon and Ohio State in the sense that they lose a lot. There's a lot of new in both spots there, but I think we have a little bit more reason to trust that Ohio State keeps things on the rails. I think that we really have some question marks when it comes to Oregon and what they lost and what they're bringing back up for this coming season. So I'm a little bit dubious on them. And, I think that Penn State is very much a national title contender. I've put some American currency behind that opinion. And I kind of have stopped short of betting on them to win the Big Ten. And I've been thinking as of this morning when I'm prepping for this show, it's why would I stop? If I think that they can win the Natty, why wouldn't I think that they can win the Big Ten? And obviously, Ohio State is a huge roadblock for them. It seems like it feels very similar to Coach Klein in Waterboy going up against his rival. You just can't seem to get it done against Ohio State, but maybe it will eventually happen. But regardless, I think that this is a really strong top of the conference, particularly in the case of Ohio State and Penn State. Got some questions on Oregon that of course we will get to.
So let's talk about Penn State, right? If not now, then when? For James Franklin and the Nittany Lions, their win total sitting at 10.5. They bring back just a super veteran-laden team. I mean, stop me if you've heard this before, John. A veteran-heavy Big Ten team that's returning a ton of production, trying to finally get over that hump and win the national title after a disappointing end to the previous season, right? We've seen this story each of the past 2 years. Is it Penn State's turn here? As I mentioned, win total sitting at 10.5. The over plus 115 on DraftKings. It's minus 122 to the under on FanDuel. Those are your best spots right now if you want to bet in either direction. And really, right, I feel like this win total, it comes down to 2 games. You got Oregon at home, which is going to be the whiteout game, and then you got Week 10 at Ohio State. So what do you make of Penn State, James Franklin, and everything going on in Happy Valley this year?
I'm pushing my chips to the middle of the table when it comes to this Penn State team. And last year they go ahead, they make it to the semifinal, and they fall short. Aller has the bad, poorly timed interception and everything like that. Things end up going off the rails. But you look at the rest of the kind of teams with legit national championship aspirations. Very few of them, other than Clemson, really have the continuity that Penn State does. I mean, you have a long-time returning starter in Drew Allen. We've known about Nick Singleton and Katron Allen for years at this point. I think it's pretty fair to say that they are the best running back tandem in college football. So that's certainly a big thing in their favor. Great offensive line as well. The questions come less about Allen in a sense because we know who he is, but think about that passing game last year.
Yeah.
Against your Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Dan, how many yards did the wide receivers produce for Penn State?
Well, I know Aller only had 135 passing yards total, so it wasn't much.
It was, depending on which box score you look at, it was either 0 or -3 yards from
Nice.
from the wide receivers specifically. So I think at one sense, you can be like, oh, they lose all the receivers from last year. It's like, that's not a bad thing in my opinion. Like, other than Trey Wallace, they had nothing doing. Now it is a huge deal that they lose Tyler Warren. Like, he was the engine of that offense in almost like a crazy, like, gadgety but also conventional way. So I mean,
he lined up at center. He lined up at center sometimes for them. I mean, he was awesome. He was one of the most exciting players in college football to watch every single Saturday.
Exactly. So now they kind of have a full line change as far as their receivers are concerned. I like Trevor Penn, the guy that they bring in from Syracuse to kind of lead that group. Khalil Dinkins is going to be a little bit more experienced within this program. He made a catch against Notre Dame. His father, Darnell Dinkins, played in the NFL. They have another tight end who's very talented. So there's enough there. So long-winded way of saying that despite the fact that they're kind of doing a wholesale change as far as their passing game weapons are concerned, I think it's a good thing. For other than losing Tyler Warren, I think it's a good thing. I think there's reason to be confident in what they have around Drew Aller in that passing game.
So my favorite thing about Penn State is that they are pretty much a gambler's dream, especially like post-COVID with James Franklin, right? They beat who they're supposed to beat. They lose to who they're supposed to lose to. And Bill Connolly really broke this down on ESPN, did a great job. He writes, over the past 3 seasons, Penn State is 34-2 as a favorite. They're 27-0 and they're favored by at least 6 points. But they're 0-6 as underdogs. So, like I was saying, Penn State is just they're just so properly marked by the book, like by the books. They're favored when they're supposed to. They win when they're supposed to. It's just perfect, and that's why I enjoy betting this team one way or another on any given Saturday.
Easy second half against them in November during their national championship season, where they just decided not to throw the football whatsoever, and that's a tough look for Penn State. But regardless, yes, they are kind of like the gambler's dream in that sense, and yeah, we've got 2 kind of coin flip games for them this year.
Yeah, so as we look to Penn State's schedule here, and I want to pull that up for everybody. So let's go to Penn State's schedule. There it is. So as you can see, they have like this cupcake first 3 weeks with Nevada, FIU, and Villanova. And then they have a bye week, and then there's that Oregon game, right, which it looks like that is not – so wasn't there like some sort of like crazy – like everybody thought this was going to be like a noon kick, or am I thinking of the Ohio State game? Because it looks like – according to ESPN anyway, that's going to be a 7:30 kickoff, and as you were saying, this is going to be the whiteout game.
Right. So, I forget what the rights situation was and the kickoff stuff, but I am fairly certain that this is the whiteout game. That's a tough draw for Oregon.
Yeah, and Penn State's got the bye there leading into that as well. And then you see UCLA, Northwestern, Iowa, and then both Ohio State and Penn State will have a bye heading into that game between the two of them there in Week 10. So, John, how far does Penn State end up going this season? We can head back to FanDuel here, and I can pull that up for everybody and see what their national title odds are, the latest odds anyway. Let me just hang on. Where is it? There we go. It's always fun to direct a show and host it at the same time. But anyways, Penn State to make the playoff, I think they're sitting around -300 for everybody there. They're heavily juiced. There's really no point of betting that anymore if you're looking to really make some money on that. But we got Penn State at -290, so that's come down a little bit. And then to win the national championship, they are third there. They're tied with Ohio State, John, at 7-1 to win it all.
Yeah, and I'm with it. I'm with it on them winning the national championship at that particular price. I think that they can do it. Defensively, that they have a little bit more of a churn on that side of the ball, but I think you can also, you're talking about the strength of recruiting. Penn State definitely is kind of like among them. I think they've recruited better than Michigan, frankly, for the most part. These last couple of years, as far as like blue chip talent is concerned. So I think they're going to be able to reload on the defensive side of the ball. I think that you can be excited about their defensive coordinator as well. And you complement that with an offense that should be able to kind of print points however they want to, either running or passing.
I think Penn State's got the goods this year, absolutely, and I love them at that price.
So I just can't get behind it because I just don't trust Drew Aller. That's like what it comes down to. Like, I mean, last year, right? So basically, this is what I'm saying. I think Drew Aller is going to make or break Penn State's season. Not that much big of like a hard-hitting analysis, right? Your quarterback's going to decide whether or not you go all the way. But with Aller, man, when he is bad, or when he's off, I should say, he's bad. And he cost his team games, turning the ball over. We saw it against Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl in the semifinal a year ago. And he kind of has that roller coaster thing going on with him at sometimes. I know Kolonicki came in and fixed a lot of those issues last year, but I'm just not quite sure that Drew Aller can put together a big game here for Penn State when it really comes to like nut-cutting time at the end of the year.
I think that's fair. We have the sample that kind of works both ways, right? Like we have we've seen a lot of Drew Aller. We've seen a lot of Aller fall short. I mean, that's kind of been like the MO of this Penn State program. Like they're right on the cusp, but they don't break through. They're sort of the Big Ten version of Georgia for a long time and Clemson from the ACC for a long time. Where it's like, what? They have all the Jimmys and Joes. Why isn't it actually happening for them? But I think that you look at just kind of like the rest of the elites this year, and I think that there's just. I just like that Drew Aller's played this much football. Like I think that at this level, compare him to Julian Sain. That now does he have Jeremiah Smith to throw to? No, but I think that by that same token, Aller's going to be having started like 40 plus games in his college career. I think that I'm starting to buy in more on like the experienced guys when it comes to winning big at the college level. So. Will Howard obviously had played a ton of football. I think he was like a freshman during like the COVID year at Kansas State, so he had a ton of starts under his belt as well. Stetson Bennett had played a ton. J.J. McCarthy was a long-time starter at Michigan as well. So I think that's like just one of those things. There's very little separating these elite teams this year, but I think the sheer experience on Aller. If he does take another step forward, I think that's going to be the thing that does take them over the edges.
Yeah, so it's like I said, if not now, when, right? All the pieces are there. They just have to finally put it all together here and like exercise some demons along the way. But anyways, let's head on. Let's move on. Let's keep this moving. Let's head out to the Pacific Northwest. Let's talk about Oregon. Their win total also sitting at 10.5. You can find the over here at plus 135 on BetMGM. The under, minus 160 on FanDuel. So juice to the under there. Dan Lanning has reached double-digit wins in all 3 seasons as a head coach out there at in Eugene, excuse me. An impressive Big Ten debut quickly turned sour a year ago with that Rose Bowl just drubbing by Ohio State. That game was over by halfway through the first quarter pretty much. How do you view last year for Oregon, John, right? They go into the playoff undefeated, the number 1 overall seed. They just went into the Big Ten, planted their flag in Indianapolis, won the conference. But then they get absolutely steamrolled by the eventual national champions, the Ohio State Buckeyes. How do you view last year for Oregon?
Well, not to be too hindsighty, but I did feel like going into last year that Ohio State, their A game was going to be better than anyone else's A game. Mm-hmm. And Oregon just happened to be on the receiving end of it. Now, Ohio State didn't really play an A game until the college football playoff. Like it didn't happen until the Tennessee game to start things. And boy, Tennessee, they were not ready for that one. No. And obviously we've seen some stuff from behind the scenes after the fact that like things were crumbling behind the scenes there in Knoxville. But, Oregon, I don't take too much from like the loss to Ohio State. I know it was embarrassing, and if anything, it can almost be a motivational thing for them coming into this year. It's like you got to get that taste out of your mouth. But I'm using a prop here. When it comes to Oregon this year, I'm drinking Faderade. I do not like what's going on with Oregon for this year. I think you look at what Lanning's had to work with his quarterbacks. Bo Nix had 34 starts at Auburn, but before he came to Eugene, Dylan Gabriel had 50 career college football starts before he got to Eugene. Dante Moore. Now, he was a big deal as a recruit, and I think that UCLA probably didn't give him the surrounding support to really tap into the full potential there. But he hasn't started double-digit games yet, so this is a whole new thing, a very green, raw quarterback, and you have like a pretty much full-on shift change as far as like the pass catching group is concerned. Losing Tez Johnson's a big deal. Ferguson, the tight end, big deal as well. And Evan Stewart, who he was a big-time recruit, hasn't maybe lived up to the billing necessarily, but him probably not playing this year, that's a big deal. There's going to have to be a lot of leaning on Dante Moore for guys like DeCorian Moore, who I am very excited about. He's the best true freshman wide receiver in college football this year. And Kenyon Sadiq, at tight end, who's a pretty exciting playmaker as well. But I think that this is the year that we kind of have to see how good of a coach Dan Lanning is, because I think that things are going to go wrong for him, particularly at the quarterback spot, in a way to where it's like you got to coach your way out of these particular situations, because your veteran quarterback isn't going to be able to help you so much.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask you, is Dante Moore like the biggest wild card in this conference this season? Because if he does play well and they can get the kind of quarterback play that they got out of Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel, Oregon can be right there again and be, threatening for that number 1 overall seed in the playoff again.
He's right there. I think that, given that Oregon is a top 10 team that has national championship aspirations, and at the very least college football playoff aspirations, there's a lot of pressure on him, and how he does, I think, is going to dictate a lot of how things go for Oregon this year. I got one that's a little bit off the wall for you, a team that we'll kind of preview on the next show, but Gronowski at Iowa. I think Iowa's one of those teams where years where people are not talking about them in the offseason, that's the year they make some splashy wins and kind of get themselves into consideration. So I've got my eye on the Hawkeyes this year, thanks to this Gronowski kid from South Dakota.
Well, I think that kind of plays into what I wanted to talk about next with Oregon. When you look at their schedule, guys, go take a look at Oregon's schedule here. They got a really tough road slate. Obviously, you got all that travel that they're going to have this season, but as we were talking about with Penn State, they have to go to Happy Valley at night at the end of September. Oregon is not going to have a bye going into that game. They will have played every single week heading into September 27th at Penn State, where Penn State's going to be coming in that one refreshed and rested off of a bye. They also have to go all the way across the country to Rutgers. They'll probably win that one, but still, you have to go all the way across the country again, back and forth, back and forth. We saw that play out a few times last season with some teams that just couldn't handle all that travel as we got further on into the season. They have to go to Iowa in the second Saturday in November. That game's in November 8th. They also have to go to Washington this year, too, and whenever those two teams play, usually we get a pretty good matchup that no one gives in on. So this is a tough schedule, 10.5, John. I don't know if they're going to quite get there, because I can see them losing that Penn State game. I can absolutely see them losing at Iowa as well here too, and that's going to make that under cash, and that's why that's sitting at like a -160 right now is the best price.
Yeah, and I think that we're only 1 year into this new college football system with the 12 teams, but there does seem to be a bit of a line in the sand drawn at 2 and 3 losses. Mm-hmm. I think we see 3 losses from this Oregon team. Yeah. So I think it's a good bet to make on Oregon. Now, I wish the odds were a little bit better. I don't think they're any better than 3-1. But Oregon missing the playoff is actually my preferred bet on the Ducks this year.
I like that. Yeah, I feel like Oregon's going to be right on that like first team out bubble when we get to the playoff time, like right where like Ole Miss was sitting, Miami was sitting, where those schools were a year ago. I feel like that's right where we're going to see the Ducks this year, just because, as you were just talking about, I don't think we're going to get the quarterback play out of them for them to elevate their game to the next level and get back to the playoff this season. That's where I kind of see Oregon fitting in, probably in like the 13, 14, 15 range come December.
Yeah, there's going to be a loss in there where they are kicking themselves for, the same way that Ole Miss kicked themselves for losing to Kentucky last year. Like, there's something like that is going to happen to Oregon this year. And I do think that, as it stands, the game's a long ways away, but I think Iowa can beat Oregon. especially in Iowa City. Absolutely.
Yeah, could absolutely see that with that defense too. And if they get any semblance of quarterback play, like you were talking about, that could be a long afternoon or evening, whatever time that game is there for Oregon. So let's move on. Let's talk about Indiana. Okay, the Cinderella story from a year ago, the darling, the apple of everybody's eye in 2024. We got an 8.5 for a win total here for Coach Sig's squad. Plus 110 to the over on MGM's your best price. Minus 130 to the under on FanDuel. Right? Last season, Coach Cignetti says he was, quote, ready to shock the world. He backed that up. Coach Sig, I mean, they were rolling last year. Cignetti's never had a losing season as a head coach in like 13 years now, whether it's at JMU, here at Indiana, elsewhere. I mean, no one's going to catch Indiana's not going to catch anybody by surprise this season. But can they recreate that magic, that success from a year ago? When we did our top 10 quarterbacks, I talked about my guy Fernando Mendoza. I have him as one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the country going into this year. We know they're going to be able to score. Can they stop teams? What's your breakdown when it comes to the Hoosiers here in 2025?
Yeah, I do think Sig, while abrasive and sometimes annoying with some of how he talks, his guys come ready to play, right? And I think that his team sort of embody his hard-nosed, confident underdog type of mentality. So they have one stretch that I circled that I think is going to tell us everything that we need to know about the Hoosiers this year. And it comes early. Their Big Ten opener against Illinois. A lot of people are saying that Illinois could be this year's Indiana. That team that kind of dodges the big dogs in the Big Ten, has a schedule that could, if everything goes well, lead them to double-digit wins and therefore be right on the cusp of making the college football playoff. So them versus Illinois in September is huge. That's their first Big Ten game. Then you go to Iowa, and then a bye week, and then to Oregon. That's the stretch for this Indiana team. That's going to dictate how much last year was a fluke versus how much this Hoosiers team is kind of for real as a program in the new Big Ten. So that's what I'm looking for with this team. 8.5 is a tough number to really feel great about Indiana football, but Sig has made fools of his doubters before. I'm going to take the under when it comes to this team. I do love Mendoza, and I think Elijah Surratt is one of the best receivers in college football. But I'm going to say that they take a little bit of a step back this year. Some of that magic from 2024, unable to repeat this time around. I think it does get rubbed off a little bit more on Illinois this year.
Yeah, like I said, I love the Mendoza transfer. I think it's that might be my favorite transfer in the entire country going into this season. They return the top 2 wide receivers. The offensive line has a ton of experience as well. I feel like, John, the way I view Indiana is that they're going to be a very tough out, and they're going to be a team that no one's going to really want to play, but I don't think they're going to be able to recreate that magic and get to that 10-11 wins like they were a year ago. I'd probably side with you and lead towards the under here at 8.5. This is a tough schedule. And you didn't even mention towards the end there where they have to go to Penn State also in the month of November too. So I think they're just going to be a little too much here for Indiana to overcome this season, and that scheduling difference from a year ago is really going to come into effect here.
Absolutely, yeah. Last year, I mean, credit to them for taking advantage of what was in front of them, but it's a lot tougher of a road this year, and they don't have the Maple Missile and Nathan Rourke. As much as we love Mendoza, Rourke's like an all-time college football guy. What a beast.
Yeah, he was awesome. Plus 570, by the way, to make the playoff, if anybody out there is feeling like backing the Hoosiers to get back to the college football playoff. So we'll head out west, and let's head out to Southern California, and let's talk about the USC Trojans. I don't like throwing around the hot seat word, the term, phrase, however you want to talk about it. We did this with Mike Norvell, talking about the ACC. Similar situation here, I feel like, with Lincoln Riley. Heading into year 4 there for Mr. Riley, out in California, out in Hollywood. The team has gotten worse each season, record-wise, when it comes to USC. He's gone from 11-1 to 8-5. To 7-6. We know a Riley coach team can score. It just always comes down to, can they stop the opposition? I think they made some big-time strides with that Danton Lynn hire last year as their defensive coordinator, blowing out Alex Grinch a couple years ago mid-season. They got a little bit better. I think they can take another jump this season. The Mayava move at quarterback's very interesting. But this team, John, was so frustrating. I had USC as an over win total a year ago, and that ticket did not cash, despite the fact that they had second half leads, I think, in 10 of 12 games last season. They just could not finish. So USC this year could be a true wild card in this conference. Lincoln Riley's got to get this thing figured out and heading back in the right direction, because if he has let's say this trend continues and he drops to 6-7, I think he's out of there.
Right, and this is it's different, but it's the same. Like Maryland, Loxley is kind of hanging on by virtue of the recruiting class that's coming next year. And I think some of Lincoln Riley's pull and appeal right now at USC is the class that he's built for 2026. I think at the time of this recording, it might be the best recruiting class in this upcoming cycle. If not, it is top 3. So he can't let the on-field results kind of allow other teams to kind of swoop in. We've seen classes fall apart because of what's happening on the field. All these kids that are excited to go to USC, all of a sudden they lose a game to Michigan State at home, and it's oh yeah, I think I'm reopening my commitment here, my recruitment here. So they got to keep this on the rails. You got to opening week against Missouri State, gonna be fine. But a little revenge game for old Clay Helton coming out with Georgia Southern to USC.
Is that what he is now?
Second week of this.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and they're kind of crazy. They're not fun to play against. They're gonna throw the ball against you until the clock hits 0. They're wild. But beyond that, it's a schedule where I think this team is good enough to get to 8 wins. There's a lot of coin flip games, though. I think the Michigan game, which is at home, that's big, is one to really kind of circle, and it's going to be kind of a bellwether for the season for USC. I think going to Illinois on September 27th, shaping up to be maybe the best Saturday of the season, folks. Keep an eye on that. That's the Oregon and Penn State game. You got Georgia Bama that day. That's some good stuff. Going to Nebraska,
Notre Dame, Arkansas.
Going to Nebraska in November and hosting Iowa in November, and also having to play Oregon. These are all games that are varying degrees of coin flip to me. So this is going to be a big test of Lincoln Riley's mettle and how good Jaden Mayava is.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm glad you brought up Mayava there. I want to talk about this quickly. I'm seeing some Mayava Heisman dark horse chatter. Legit, or is that Trojan fanboy talk?
Mostly column B, mostly fanboy talk. Now, I do think that there's a chance that with the offense, we've seen Lincoln Riley produce some Heisman Trophy guys.
3, right? Is it 3? Baker, Kyler, and Caleb, right? Yeah.
And Caleb. So there's that. There's the fact that he plays for USC. There's the fact that there's a big ticket games like against Michigan, like playing against Notre Dame and playing against Oregon, where the proverbial Heisman moment, it's going to be on the table for Mayava. Now, does he actually make it and take it? I'm not super convinced of that, but if he's 60 to 1 or something to win the Heisman, a pizza worth behind that. There could be worse ways to spend it. I'm not that personally, but I understand how you can kind of piece together the Heisman case for Jaden Mayava.
Yeah, so I can't remember if I mentioned this at the beginning or not. USC's win total is at 7.5, heavily juiced to the over. Best price, -160 on DraftKings. The under's at +135 on DK as well. As I talked about, it really is going to come down to, can they close out some of these games, these coin flip games that you were hinting at. Love that Danton Lynn hire a year ago. According to Bill Connolly, he takes S&P Plus on the defensive side of the ball from 105th to 48th last year. That is a huge jump. If he can improve that a little bit, if USC can get into the top 40 defense, I think they smash that 8 wins, no problem. And that's going to go hand in hand there with closing out those close games because you got to play defense to get stops at the end of games.
Yeah, that's a huge detail that you mentioned from last year. Like having the second half leads evaporate so many times, and having that second half lead 10 out of 12 times during the regular season, and still finishing 7-6, going 6-6 in the regular season. Come on, like you got to play some defense to close out those games. It's a tough schedule, but like you said, orders of magnitude here. You got a defense that's top 30, top 35, and an offense that's probably top 15. You have some interesting, makings here, an interesting formula, and it's interesting also to see the projection systems where they power rank this team. ST Plus from Bill Connolly has them as the 30th best team coming into the year, and FPI actually has them as 19th.
Wow.
So there's some difference there, some difference of opinions from the computers.
Interesting. A lot to watch there out in Southern California, as always. So there's a lot of teams in this conference, guys, that are sitting with a 7.5 as their win total. There's just a lot of meat in the middle here in the Big Ten. USC is one of those teams at 7.5. Want to talk about 2 more on this show today. Let's start with Nebraska here. They're sitting at 7.5. Overs at -142, pretty juiced. The under at +125. This might be the biggest narrative in college football, heading into this season. Year 3, Matt Rule. Will we see the jump in Lincoln the way we saw it at Baylor and Temple, right? Matt Rule has double-digit wins in year 3 at both Temple and Baylor. Can he do that again here at Nebraska, who just had their first winning season since 2016? So obviously he has this thing going in the right direction. Can he get to 8 wins? Can he get to double-digit wins like people are expecting there with that narrative? Dylan Raiola's got to take a huge jump. The huge prospect last year. I mean, if you're going to dress up like Patrick Mahomes and be his clone and look alike, you got to win a couple more football games than you did a year ago. What do you expect out of the Huskers here?
Yeah, the funniest thing about Raiola doing that is also acting like he doesn't know that he's, aping off of the Patrick Mahomes look.
A little weird.
Reporters are just hey, you're doing the same exact stuff and wearing the headband and doing the pregame. It's what are you talking about? I don't even know who that is, which is very funny. But when it comes to this Huskers team, I am a believer in Raiola's talent. I think that he just kind of changes the direction of this program. I think that last year you get those freshman learning curve lumps out of the way and you're kind of ready to rock for this coming season. So I am of the belief that he's going to be able to take that proverbial step forward. I think that they brought in one of the best transfer wide receivers in the country this year in Dane Key. Loved him at Kentucky. I actually really wanted him at Georgia and was pretty disappointed that he ended up at Nebraska. And Ja'Cory Bennett, or Ja'Cory Barney, is a promising guy going into year 2 at receiver, had 55 catches last year. So you mentioned that the schedule sets up for the fast start. I will say, going to Cincinnati to start, that's big. That's I actually, just in my head, prepping for this show, I figured the line was going to be Nebraska -4 at Cincinnati to start out. It is Nebraska -6.5.
Oh.
So that's a little bit more favorite from Vegas, but Cincinnati's no joke. I mean, we'll talk about them on the Big 12 preview, but Sorsby, that guy's a beast. And there's some good stuff. They've got the Dom, they've got Michael Corleone there on the defensive side at Cincinnati. You got some stuff going on there, so that they cannot take that lightly. Nobody takes week 1 lightly, of course, but that's a tough non-con game for this Nebraska team. They need to take care of business there. If they do, I think I'm going to be pretty confident in what this Nebraska team can do going forward. Now, if they struggle or lose to Cincinnati, then, which I think is completely within the realm of possibility, then it's gut check time.
Yeah, definitely. So I just had the schedule up there for everybody to take a look at for Nebraska. The thing that immediately jumps out right when you're trying to bet this team is that there's no Ohio State, there's no Oregon, no Illinois either on this schedule for this team. They get Michigan at home. They do have to go to Penn State, but they get USC at home as well. They get Iowa at home. So if you really do believe in that Matt Rule year 3 thing, might be worth investing, maybe taking an alt total there with them. But one other thing with Nebraska that we didn't quite hit on with Dylan Raiola and him taking that big jump, and forgive me if you did say this, then I totally just spaced out and missed it. Dana Holgerson is the full-time offensive coordinator for Nebraska this season. He kind of picked things up with like the last month last year, but we saw Raiola make some strides with him. I really like that move. Bringing in a full-time, experienced offensive coordinator who, think what you want about Holgerson as a head coach, he has always had good offenses.
Yeah, go big Red Bull when it comes to Holgo there. And not bad, right?
All right, might want to trademark that. Let's move on here. Let's head back out west. Let's talk about Washington. 7.5 is their win total here. Over is plus 110, under minus 110. So the books don't really know what to do with this either. They're giving you standard odds. Pretty basically, give or take a few points here when it comes to the Huskies. At 7.5, year 2 for Jedd Fisch, and the Desmond Williams era is officially underway. It was wild, like doing research here, looking for this particular show that we're doing, and just seeing like where Desmond Williams ranked from a year ago. Like, it was insane. Did you know, John, he was 4th in QBR with a minimum of 150 dropbacks in all of college football last year? So the sample size we got of Williams was incredible.
That's right. It was. If you're into like college fantasy football, people are big on Damon Williams.
Or Damon, I'm sorry, I'm calling him Desmond.
You're good. He's like a top 3 round guy on like Underdog and in your full universe college fantasy football drafts. So people are absolutely drinking the Kool-Aid on Williams, and if he is that guy, then this makes a huge difference for this Washington team, especially when like the schedule is tough but doable. That again is why you're sitting at that 7.5 number. But I think if you scroll down, it's in like the bottom half of the league as far as strength of schedule is concerned. It's right in that same area as, for comparison's sake, within this podcast. Like, it's about the same difficulty as what Indiana's up against this year.
Yeah, they do have to play Ohio State, who is coming in off of a bye. They have to play Michigan on the road. They have Illinois as well. It's like, basically, if you're someone like me, and John, I'm pretty sure you do the same thing. If you pick up the Phil Steele guide, right, he breaks down like who's on a bye going into what matchup. Like, if you go to Washington's page here, and I'll just show it for everybody, you can pull it up. Like, half their schedule, it seems like they're getting like boned when it comes to other team being on a bye, like coming in. Ohio State is coming off of a bye heading into that one. Washington is not. They just had the Apple Cup the week before. The next week, they go across the country to Maryland. Maryland will be rested. They're on off of a bye. Then they play Rutgers back on the West Coast. Rutgers gets a full week off to prepare for that cross-country trip. Illinois, and a few weeks later, they're off of a bye. Wisconsin, who's going to get, and I can just keep going here. There's going to be some tough breaks, I think, for Washington. And I think that would have me leaning towards the under here, as much as I love Jedd Fisch and the potential of Damon Williams.
Yeah, don't be shocked if they go over, because if Damon Williams really is that guy, then all of a sudden we're singing a very different tune about this team. But as it stands, like, I'm not the biggest Jedd Fisch guy in the world. I know that he had a couple good seasons there at Arizona, which impressive, kind of raised them from the dead. But it all comes down to Williams for me, and therefore, I mean, that cumulative rest thing, like Warren Sharp talks about that on the NFL side of thing. It sounds like they are far in the negative as far as cumulative rest advantage is concerned. When you're a team that also has, the miles traveled disadvantage in most of your matchups, I think that's a lot of chips stacked against you getting over the 7.5. So I'm gonna be a little conservative here with my Washington expectations this year. I'm excited to watch Damon Williams, but give me the under 7.5.
All right, let's do one more team here, and then we'll do a little, I don't know, what do we want to call it? Like a little exercise, I guess, with some quarterbacks here, and then we'll finish the Big Ten up on our next show. But let's talk about Rutgers. I don't think we'll go too far with this, but the Scarlet Knights, 5.5 is their win total. Minus 125 to the under on DK, plus 120 to the under also on DraftKings. Rutgers, John, back-to-back 7-win seasons for Greg Schiano there in New Jersey. They return a bunch of production, 16 starters, right? Schiano's had a winning season in 8 out of the last 12 years at Rutgers. But I just have this feeling, looking at this schedule, that it's absolutely brutal. They play Ohio State, Penn State, Illinois, Oregon, Iowa. They have to go across the country to Washington, as I mentioned. I just have a feeling this is going to be one of those teams, right, where they're a lot better than what their record says they are at the end of the season.
Yeah, I always feel bad for like the sort of, we'll call them lower tier programs within a conference who also get the full gauntlet like that. Like,
yeah.
I guess we used to see it too in the Big Ten East, but with Rutgers and Maryland both, where it's just like, well, each year you're starting, best case scenario is 9-3 because you have to play Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan. It seems like this year the schedule gods are not overly favorable to this Rutgers team. So they are an embodiment of Schiano, but if they get to bowl eligibility, that is a huge win for them. That's why we're sitting at a 5.5, and I will go ahead and take the under. I just think that ultimately, just returning production, it can be great, but sometimes it doesn't work out. I mean, I think Oklahoma State last year is a really good example of that. People were really gassed up on Oklahoma State. They had pretty much everybody back, and they stunk, as everyone knows. Not to say that it's going to be the exact same for Rutgers, but I'm stopping short. I think that the schedule is ultimately too much, and I don't buy the talent, and I think it's a big loss that they lost Kyle Mananjai. He was kind of like the workhorse, made that offense kind of do anything. And so, therefore, I'm out on Scarlet Knights.
Yeah, Cal Kamanis can be really fun to watch, but I don't know if he's going to be able to lead them to 6 wins this season. It's going to be tough, as you mentioned. And Rutgers, when you look at their schedule, they could start off 3-0, and then things could just crater once they get to conference play. Probably going to be a tough one there for the Scarlet Knights. All right, so that's it for team previews for this show. We will do the rest of the Big Ten. Obviously, I left Ohio State and Michigan for our next show. We'll dive deep into those teams, along with Illinois, Iowa, too, and some others as we finish and wrap up the Big Ten. Maryland, I'm sorry. I know you dropped in a reference earlier there, so we did talk about them just a little bit. But I thought we would wrap this up. So a couple shows ago, we did our top 10 quarterbacks overall heading into the 2025 season. You floated out the idea to just talk about first-year guys in particular. I'm not so far in the trenches that I can give you a full-on top 10 list of who I expect to be the best first-year starting quarterbacks in the country. But I do kind of want to talk about which ones are immediately stepping into the pressure cooker. So let's talk about that a little bit. Do you want me to just give my examples here, or do you have some off the top of your head you want to talk about right away? How do you want to do this?
Just give me your parameters. Has this guy started a single game at the program, or are we counting a bowl game starts?
Yeah, so true
what's our cutoff?
I don't know, wanted to go 4 starts or less, something like that. So basically, yeah, pretty much the Kelly Bryant rules, we'll call it like that. The kid from Clemson from a while ago. But you know what, John, I'll just fire off some here. These are my top 5 first-year starting quarterbacks with the most pressure. Number 1, it's obvious. It's Arch Manning at Texas. I mean, all this hype. Texas is the favorite going into the season. They're the number 1 team in the country right now in the coaches poll. I'm sure they're going to be there on the AP as well when that comes out this week. Arch Manning needs to step in and he needs to deliver, because this kid, if he does not and he just looks so-so, he's going to get a lot of hate and people are going to be bashing him nonstop. So he is the guy, I think, with the most pressure this season. Number 2, I got Julian Sayin at Ohio State. You step in as the defending national for the defending national champs. You have all those weapons at Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith, The most important one, the biggest one there, I think Sayin, who was a top recruit, right? He flipped from Bama, goes up to Columbus. I think he's got a ton of pressure on him. Obviously, people just like they need him to beat Michigan, which is like the number one thing for him this season. But Sayin is 2 for me. 3, a little biased, but I'm going to go CJ Carr at Notre Dame. I think this is a big one here, a sneaky big one, and a lot of pressure on Carr because this is the first time since Marcus Freeman's first year that he did not go into the portal to get a quarterback. He likes CJ Carr this much. Lloyd Carr's kid, the legendary Michigan coach, his son is now the quarterback at Notre Dame. He's going to be the starter week 1. I just think that says a lot about him that Marcus Freeman did not go into the portal like he did the past 2 seasons when he brought in Riley Leonard and Sam Hartman. Number 4, I'm going to go with Ty Simpson at Alabama. If Simpson doesn't perform, he's got Austin Mack, who was Kalen DeBoer's prize recruit up at Washington, transferred with him down to Tuscaloosa. He's going to be breathing down his neck, so Ty Simpson needs to perform, and he needs to perform right out of the gate there for the Crimson Tide. And then finally, anytime the number 1 overall recruit in the country is going to be starting and is expected to start week 1, he's got to be on the list, right? So let's go Bryce Underwood at Michigan with my number 5 first-year quarterback with the most pressure on him.
I think that's a great list. I think, Underwood, he's got an early season tough matchup against Brent Venables' defense. I love that the top 2 guys and the top 2 teams in the country are facing off right off the jump.
First time ever.
With Arch Manning. It's crazy. It's we're reaching the limit of excitement and hype for a week 1 game.
Yeah.
It's out of this world, so I can't wait for that one. I do think a guy that we talked about, I guess maybe he started too many games but at a different program to really count here, but I think the pressure's definitely on Dante Moore. I think that this is an Oregon team that has a certain standard now. That they are a program that's if we don't make the playoff, something has gone horribly wrong. And I think that with the sample we've seen so far with Dante Moore, it's it needs to happen. I think that the leash could be somewhat short, and I don't think they want it to be because they brought him in last year to kind of learn the system a little bit, but behind Dylan Gabriel before turning the keys over to him. So there's a lot of pressure on him to make them look smart for taking the bet on him after flaming out at UCLA. And then another guy, not so much pressure necessarily, but expectations are kind of crazy given what we've seen from this kid so far. One drive, I was there in person for it, was impressive. Austin Simmons of the Ole Miss Rebels. Big shoes to fill with Jackson Dart, one of the most winning quarterbacks in program history. People are really gassing up Austin Simmons. He's got to make him look smart. Otherwise, I think that this is another program that is playoff or bust type of mentality right now. Obviously, they didn't make it last year, but they're right on the doorstep. Had a couple slip-ups that really prevented them from getting there. The Florida game, I think, still eats at them. The Kentucky game.
Sure.
Austin Simmons, it's all right there for him. I think they have such a sick receiving core. It's an offense that prints production from the quarterback position. Can he be that next super productive Ole Miss receiver or Ole Miss quarterback who actually gets them to play meaningful football in the postseason?
Yeah, I like that. So I guess we could looking back, we could rework our rules to if you didn't play last season, you can also count on this list. So we can squeeze Dante Moore in there for you because he did not play much, if at all. I would have to look it up. He probably played a couple of drives there for Oregon last season.
He had like 5 games in our counter, but 40 pass attempts. And then I will say that Gunnar Stockton's under a pretty amount of pressure as well at Georgia. I think there's a chance that he doesn't end the season as the starting quarterback. I think this Ryan Puglisi kid is pretty good, and the program's giving him a ton of time to Gunnar Stockton. We'll unpack this more in the SEC preview, but Stockton, and it's not just what we saw last year, but I don't know. I think there's some questions about him relative to Puglisi and the arm talent discussion there that I think is kind of interesting to think about.
Fair enough. So we'll leave you with that. That concludes part 1 of our Big Ten preview, along with some first-year quarterbacks that are under the most pressure. We will be back later this week with part 2 of the Big Ten preview. As I mentioned, Ohio State, Michigan, Illinois, Iowa, all those teams we still have to get to. We'll give our picks for who we think is going to win this conference. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching. If you could drop us a subscription, it doesn't cost you anything. Just hit that subscribe button. It would mean so much to us as we continue trying to build this show and we get closer and closer to kickoff. For John, I'm Dan. We'll talk to you guys later this week. All right, we're good.
Great.